Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the Bible to look at the faithful exit, escaping spiritual overconfidence, based on 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to unpack some really profound research rooted in Reformed Calvinism theology. Basically, we're looking at how our very real human weakness collides with God's absolute providence. You know, if you've ever felt like you've got this whole spiritual life completely figured out, well, this analysis is definitely going to challenge that assumption, but in the best way possible. So let's start with our fundamental research premise, directly from the Bible. 1 Corinthians 10:12 says, "So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall." This perfectly captures the concept of total depravity. It's that sobering realization that without God sustaining us, our natural default is, well, failure. It's a really stark reminder that trusting in our own strength is literally a massive spiritual blind spot. Okay, to give you the big picture first, here's our roadmap. Number 1. The warning from 1 Corinthians 10. 2. The history of Israel in the wilderness. 3. Experience versus spiritual faithfulness. 4. College life and overconfidence. 5. The step-by-step exit strategy. And 6. Our conclusion, God is faithful.
All right, diving into section 1, the warning from 1 Corinthians 10. This is all about truly acknowledging our total dependence on God's grace. And here is the main argument we're highlighting today. Simply having access to God's grace is absolutely not the same thing as being faithful. It's so easy to confuse proximity with actual holiness, right? Just because you're hanging out in an environment where God's grace is preached, or you've got this amazing, thriving Christian community around you, it doesn't automatically mean your own heart is staying faithful to Him. Access is an incredible privilege, for sure, but faithfulness, that requires our active participation.
Moving on to section 2, history. Let's look at Israel and the wilderness to give us some solid historical context before we dive into the specifics.
Paul actually uses the Israelites as a historical case study, and honestly, their spiritual privilege was off the charts. Look at this list. They literally had God physically guiding them with a cloud during the day and fire at night. They were baptized into Moses in the sea, experiencing this massive, miraculous deliverance. Plus, they had manna dropping from heaven and water pouring from a rock. And our source points out that Christ was the rock providing for him perfectly. They had a front row seat to the supernatural. But crazy enough, it still didn't prevent them from falling.
To put that into perspective, 23,000. That is how many Israelites fell in a single day. Despite having absolutely everything God provided, they fell because they surrendered to idolatry, sexual immorality, testing God, and just constant grumbling. The data here is crystal clear. Outward spiritual privileges do not make anyone immune to internal rebellion. Which brings us to section 3, experience versus spiritual faithfulness. We're going to compare and contrast two distinct theological theories here. Check out this comparison. On one side, we have spiritual experience. Think of this as just the starting line. It's the outward stuff, showing up to a Bible study, enjoying access to God's blessings. But on the other side, we have spiritual faithfulness. This is actually running the race. It means maintaining daily vigilance and actively avoiding temptation. The key takeaway? Never mistake spiritual experience for spiritual maturity. The Corinthians totally thought their spiritual resume made them bulletproof, and man, they were tragically mistaken. All right, let's pivot to section 4, college life and overconfidence. Let's take all this historical data and translate it straight into modern college realities. If we map Israel's historical sins directly onto campus life today, we see the exact same temptations playing out in your dorms and classrooms. Historical idolatry? Today, that looks like worshiping your GPA, your social status, or your future career. Sexual immorality in the wilderness mirrors the modern hookup culture on campus almost perfectly. And that grumbling in the desert, that's us complaining about our professors, our roommates, or just campus life in general. The context looks different, but the temptation, it's completely common to humanity. So, I've got to ask you, is there an area in your life right now where you feel spiritually overconfident? You know, maybe you lead a campus ministry, or you dive deep into rigorous theological studies, or you serve at a local youth group, but has all that outward activity built up a dangerous illusion that you're invincible? Look, being active in ministry is awesome, but it absolutely doesn't make you immune to the same exact pitfalls the Israelites faced.
That brings us to section 5, the step-by-step exit strategy. Let's talk about applying the perseverance of the saints in real time.
Now, this next verse from the Bible is an absolute anchor for us. 1 Corinthians 10:13 promises, God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. When you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Paul isn't promising that the temptation is just going to magically vanish. What he is saying is that God is actively, sovereignly engineering an escape route for you in that exact moment.
So let's break down this step-by-step process described in the text. When temptation hits on campus, here's the playbook. Step 1, recognize the temptation is common. You are not the only one dealing with this. Step 2, trust God's faithfulness. He's completely in control. Step 3, actively look for the specific exit he has provided. That could be a random text from a friend, a sudden change in plans, or, honestly, just the physical ability to stand up and walk out of a room. And step 4, intentionally take the exit so you can endure. At the end of the day, sin is a choice, but because of God's incredible grace, his escape hatch is always, always available.
Finally, Section 6, Conclusion. God is faithful, resting on Reformed theology and his absolute providence. To summarize the key findings of this research, it all points to a stunningly beautiful picture of grace. Yes, our human weakness is incredibly real. If we try to white-knuckle our way through life relying on our own strength, we are going to fail. But God is infinitely faithful. He orchestrates the way out of every single temptation, and our only responsibility is simply to take it. We just need to stay vigilant, lean heavily on his sustaining grace, and thank him for preserving us right to the very end. So I want to leave you with this final thought. As you head back to your dorm or your next class, what might looking for God's exit actually look like the very next time temptation pops up? Are you going to actively search for the faithful way out he has already provided? Or are you going to try to endure it all on your own until you finally break? The exit is right there, waiting for you. The choice is yours.